Hello, everybody. How you doing? Welcome to Friday night, where we do things and stuff, come up with ideas, we learn together. How's everybody doing? Let's see what's going on. Robert's here, Ironweeds, Kyle, Music to Motion. I saw Thomas is hanging around a little while ago. What's going on, everybody? So, this week, I've been watching a lot of things, learning a lot of stuff, as we all do, and we all should. And I was recently watching a video. What's up, Ironweeds? I see the mention. Ironweeds does a good thing. He did the mention, and he did the @Tim, so I can see it real easy. I was watching one of the videos from the URM guys, the Nail the Mix, Unstoppable Recording Machine, Joey Sturgis, A.L. Levy, Joel Wanasek, those guys. A while ago, they were working with Tom Lord Alge, who was mixing an Angels and Airwaves track. And he was going over his process for the vocals on the song that he mixed. Excuse me. And he was just going through the process. Tom DeLonge's vocals. We're all we all know him, or if you know Blink-182, you know his voice. And the way that Tom Lord Alge does it is when he mixes, is he EQs into his compression. And this causes a bunch of different things. It's emphasizing frequencies pushed into the compressor so that the compressor reacts more to these different frequencies. And then there's other people out there who are like, wait. You're EQing into compression, then you're not going to get that balance. You're boosting all this stuff, then you're compressing it back down, and you're kind of negating that boost that you did into the EQ. So you should EQ after your compression. This way you can level things out and then sweeten things up. And then there's the other people out there who say, why not both? EQ into your compression, either additive or subtractive, or, and also EQ after your compression. So you can clean things up, do your compression, and then boost or cut afterwards as well. And thankfully, in this digital world we live in, there's no rules. You can do whatever you want. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to mess around with EQ before and after compression. Now, I've set something up. It's a heavy song. And I think it's really going to be easy to hear this on vocals. The vocals we have are heavy. They're screamy. He doesn't sing at all. I mean, I might be able to find a different session. You'd have to give me a few minutes. But this is what we're going with today. Hey, Jeff. It is a little bit like reverse psychology. If you EQ into compression, you're just negating the thing. If you EQ after, cool, you get all this stuff. But if you have nasty stuff going into the compressor and then you EQ, the good stuff is closer to the nasty stuff, like, you really have to weigh these things. But you can do it however you want. Oh my goodness, you guys are going crazy in the chat. Let's catch up with you and then we'll get into what we're doing. I think it depends on the mic. Bob, it does depend on the mic, but it also depends on the sound you're going for. If you EQ into your compression, depending on how you do it, especially if you're doing like boosts, you can get a very aggressive and upfront kind of vocal sound. And it's not just vocals, but we're going to kind of concentrate on vocals this week. So does it depend on the mic? No. Does it depend on the source? A bit. It depends on the sound that you're going for, the vision that you and the artist are going for this sound. Even if the artist isn't going for it, you could be like, what's really going to help making a more aggressive vocal or a more laid back vocal, the sound you're going for. Let's see. Smash Studios is here. Robert used to subscribe to the URM guys. Music Emotion, I don't know what you're talking about with the, that Kyle just taught you a method like that. You never tried it, but it makes complete sense to me. If you let me know a little bit more, we can all learn together. Secret's here. George is here. What's going on? Do you have a video on mastering a song using just stock plugins from Studio One 4? Thanks. Actually, I have an old live stream with a buddy of mine, mastering engineer Brandon Alshouse. We did a session together. It was actually, it was a song that I think it was a song that we recorded live on stream. Like we built it up and we did the whole thing. And then he's a mastering engineer, and I gave him the challenge. It was like, I want you to master this song only using stock plugins. And we'll do it together. We did it live together, and he walked through his process. So I do have an old live stream of it. And I think if you just look up Tim Talks mastering a song, you should find it. But if anything, George, just reach out to me. I'll see if I can find it, and I'll send it to you like a direct link. Steve K is here. What if you use Studio One Splitter and do both, one on one channel and the other on the other channel? If we're thinking EQ before or after compression, yes, you could definitely get a very interesting sound if you're doing that. Not everybody has the splitter because the splitter is just a pro feature. Of course, you could just duplicate your tracks if you're running artist. You could just duplicate your tracks completely and then reverse the order. Absolutely, you could. Would I do it with a splitter? I don't think I necessarily would. But it's not a bad idea to try. It's not a bad idea to try. I don't know if I would, though. I haven't currently. I haven't yet. Maybe we'll experiment. We'll see. Blind PC is here. Let's see. I think EQ after compression is like a dynamic EQ or not. No, a dynamic EQ is responsive to the EQ spectrum, and then it either boosts or cuts from there. And it's just like a specific EQ area, where EQ into compression or after compression is kind of like a general thing. EQ after compression is essentially just EQing. It just happens to be after your compression. If you're EQing into compression, you are changing how the compressor is listening to the signal, because you're boosting a bunch of signal into the compressor. So you're causing the compressor to react to a bunch of this frequency and a bunch of that frequency, and not as much as the other frequencies. So it's dynamic because you're pushing into the compressor, but it's not a dynamic EQ because the EQ isn't doing its curves. Excuse me. A dynamic EQ does its curve based on how much of that frequency is currently existing within your source material. I hope that makes sense. Oops. Uh-oh, lost my spot. I tried to scroll a little. And then there's DJ Big Red. And he's just saying, hey to everyone. What's going on, DJ Big Red? Let's see, Jeff Clark. With dynamic EQs and dynamic compression, all compression is dynamics, wink, you can do things never dreamed before in older analog consoles. Yes, there's a lot of things that we can do now in the digital realm that we weren't able to do on the analog consoles. Although as they had more outboard gear and things like that, they could be really creative, which is why we have the tools we have today. Thankfully, there was really smart guys who were like, if I take this component and then run signal through it, it changes the sound, and it sounds awesome. I'm going to sell it. SSL. So we're essentially getting granular by separating yolks and whites and cooking up by nuanced flavor dependent on the dish we are aiming for. We're making deviled eggs, everyone. That's what we're doing. We're taking both parts of the eggs, cooking them, and then putting them back together. And then we're hatching a devil. Kyle can explain his method, but it's using a similar theory or way to help certain things using compression out by feeding sidechain with the reverse of what you were cutting. That's like taking a duplicate or duplicating your track, doing a whole bunch of stuff, and feeding that into the sidechain input of the compressor on your main track. And you probably don't have that duplicate fed in. I call this sidechain emphasis. I don't know what Kyle calls it. Probably something very similar. You can absolutely do that. That's changing what or it's changing what the compressor is listening to by, excuse me, duplicating, doing a whole bunch of stuff, and then feeding that into the sidechain detector circuit of the compressor on the main track. I'm so belchy tonight, I'm sorry. I usually EQ into compression. Yes, that way I compress the track. Oh, excuse me. That way I compress the track sounds that I want to have only now more compressed. Yes. You're very welcome, George. So, I show music to motion how to tame sibilance on a vocal using a duplicate track with a steep notch filter, then use that track as a sidechain to a compressor on the first track. Exactly. That's what I figured as much. I think I have a video out there of a very similar process. I think, if I remember correctly, I called it sidechain emphasis. And it really is. If it's vocal, you duplicate it, you crank something on one, and the only place it goes is the sidechain input on the main or the original track, and then it has like way more S's, so it's just going to clamp down because it's hearing them first, and it just get that out of there. On Tim's channel here, there's a title, Mastering Mix with Special Guest Brandon Allshouse. Yes, that is the one. Thank you, DJ Big Red. What's up, Blades? Mid-side versus stereo or duo? For compression, yes. For when we're talking compression, yes, I use both. If I'm doing something like my drum shells or my drum bus or something like that, I do dual mono. I kind of haven't been playing with that a lot more. On your mix bus, I do kind of stereo compression. And so what Steve K is talking about is with stereo compression, obviously you have to compress the left and the right channels, and you can either link how much they compress. So maybe something's really heavy on the right and it causes the compressor to hit a little bit harder. It's going to compress the left because of what's happening on the right. That's standard stereo compression. Dual mono compression is taking your stereo signals and feeding it into essentially two single channel compressors, but everything's dialed in the same, so that if something happens on the right that is causing the right side to compress a little bit more, it doesn't affect exactly how much is being compressed on the left channel, or vice versa. So for things like drums, yeah, maybe somebody's hitting a cymbal on the right-hand side and then they switch over to the left-hand side, and I don't want that change to like really throw off my balance. So I'm going to do my compression based on where like my overheads are and things like that. So I do both. Mid-side compression, I don't really mess with it that much. You absolutely can. I don't do it that much. What's up, Brian Wallace? My preference is usually EQ before compression. Yes, Blades, that's absolutely, you can. You can do a little, okay, well, here's a question for everybody that does their EQ before the compression. How strong or how heavy-handed, that's the one I want to do. How heavy-handed are you on your EQ before you hit that compressor? Are you only doing like a couple dB, or are you doing something like 12 dB, 15 dB, like really pushing in? New strings is new calluses? Yeah, every time. Hang on, I scrolled again, and you guys are going crazy. This is great that it's such it's a subject that everybody wants to learn a lot about, and I like talking about it, so that's really cool. Multi-band compression. Wait, Jeff Clark was talking about multi-band compression. I'm finding where he said that. From what he was saying earlier, where there's tools, we have tools now that they didn't have tools back then. I gotcha. I'm with you now, Jeff. Okay, deviled eggs. Good analogy. It seems that EQ after compression makes more sense if you're cutting rather than boosting frequencies. Dan from Waves just released a really good YouTube video on that. So here's where things can get really interesting. If you're EQing before your compression, what you can do is all of your subtractive EQ before your compression, because you're taking out frequencies that don't sound good for your source or your mix. And then the compressor isn't going to hear those frequencies. It's only going to hear the good stuff. So you're going to compress and even out the stuff you really want to hear. So this is why this is one reason why you can EQ before compression. You can clean stuff out and get rid of things you don't want the compressor to hear. Or you can really crank things into a compressor and have it really react. And there's two different ways of doing it. That's EQ before compression. Then if you're doing subtractive EQ, compression, and then an EQ after, you can sweeten everything up with some additive EQ and coloring EQ after. So things like maybe you want to use something like Pro EQ on the way, Pro EQ before your compressor to really just kind of notch things out, clean it up, low pass filter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Not low pass filter, high pass filter. That's what I meant, high pass filter. I'm going to say low cut and then changed halfway through. So you can do something like Pro EQ into whatever compressor you want, fat channel, waves, plug-in alliance, blah, 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 blah. Slate, Cornef, whatever. Calling out all my buddies. And then you could follow it up with like a coloring EQ, something like a Neve, something like an SSL, something like an API, something, a Pultec even, something that's going to really color your sound, add lots of harmonics. You have this nice even sound going into that EQ, and you can boost stuff and bring out really nice, enhance everything that you've evened out and just make it kind of sing and live or be lively. Words, I know how word good. Let's see. I don't have much in the way of you guys are talking about calluses because I think Jeff is switching his strings out tonight. Boop, boop, boop. Mika's here. Hello, high quality compressors will have some form of detector EQ, whether it is sidechained or direct. So yes, every compressor has a sidechain. Even if it doesn't say it has a sidechain input, it does. That's the way compressors work. One is the active compression side, and the other is the sidechain. Whether it's external or internal, they all have them. And it's just the sidechain is the listen circuit. And then there's the compressor circuit, which goes the turn down circuit. But I see what Mika's saying. So yes, corrective EQ, then compress, then EQ to taste. Exactly. And just a touch of salt. Let's see. Blades goes, I prefer EQ first because I generally want to get the sound right, whether boost or cut, before using compression. Why compress an imperfect sound, then try to fix it again in general? Yes, and I mean, we're going to be speaking in very general terms today, and we've been talking for a while, so we're going to get into our demo in a moment. But totally makes sense, Blades. Oh, I just saw Secrets, and then it jumped way down. Hang on. Oh, goodness. There's Billy. Hang on. I got to come up a little bit there. Okay. I don't understand what sidechaining is. I hear the term frequently. What is the difference between sidechain and a send or sidechain and channel strip effects? So generally speaking on forums, if somebody's saying, oh, and then sidechain this to that, what they're saying is, and the most common one you'll hear is sidechain your kick to your bass. If your bass track is playing, it's got all your low frequencies, and if your kick is going, it also has low frequencies. So what you can do, and this is the general thing of sidechaining, like I said, that you'll hear in the forums. When they talk sidechaining, it's putting a compressor on your bass track that only compresses to the kick. The kick feeds the kick is fed into the sidechain input of the compressor on your bass. So whenever the kick hits, that's what's causing the compressor on the bass to do its job and duck that bass out of the way. And generally speaking, you dial it in so it's kind of quick because kick drums are percussive. They just go very fast. So you just want to get that bass guitar, that bass out of the way real quick, and you get this nice thump so the kick drum can come through just enough and the bass comes right back in and holds up your low end. That is the that is like the very, very typical thing you'll hear when somebody says, oh, just sidechain it. Feed the signal of one thing into the compressor of the thing you want to get pushed out of the way. That's sidechaining. I have a bunch of videos. There's a playlist of going over sidechaining. Check them out. Excuse me. And now I got everybody going off on deviled eggs because we're Secret said the split the eggs, whatever. I'm trying to, guys, I really appreciate the chat activity this evening. High quality compressor plugins will have some form of channel interaction separation control. Yeah. If you're talking like something like one of my favorites for like drums right now is the API 2500 compressor, and you can have it as fully linked stereo compression, or you can turn it to dual mono. Music's in Motion with the $5 super chat. I love the fact that you are very detailed in your explanations of technical details. I found that I tend to learn something new from you. That's me. Music to Motion learned something tonight. That's one. Music in Motion. If you're doing the Midnight Bar later, pop the link in the chat. If everybody hasn't seen, Midnight Bar is a follow-up thing on Zoom where a bunch of Studio One users get together and they just talk things out. Also, if you're looking for something to join because you want to continue conversations like this and ask questions, ta-da, join my Discord. The link for that is also in the description of this video. I'm on there. A bunch of the people that are here are on there. It's a lot of it's a lot of chat. It's a lot of fun. We learn from each other, make suggestions. Harley's here. Let's see. Brian Wallace, crank the EQ so the compressor catches, but I find that I'm able to push things harder. Works for heavy music. Yes, Brian, you're gonna love the song that we're doing today. What am I looking at? Oh my goodness, Thomas Melkerson. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that very much. Let's see. I'm trying to catch up. Here comes Mika. Got to keep in mind that compressors are responding to energy. You are in control of what energy is hitting the compressor via sidechaining or pre-EQing the input signal. Yes, absolutely, Mika. So we only needed compress on the way in on takes using track to tape. Did you only need it? So we only needed compression on the way in using track to tape. When it was on analog tape, you very frequently coming off of the console for like the 2-track, or even still on multi-track, yeah, you could compress. But like I was saying before, I was watching videos from Tom Lord-Alge. He's been doing this for 40 years at this point. Definitely 30 years. I don't want to assume his age. But I mean, like on the SSL consoles, you had compression on every single channel. So you could compress onto the multi-track tape, and then there's the stereo bus compression for the 2-track tape. So where do you want that compression to happen? And you can do it multiple times. If you compress on the way to the tape, then you play the tape back for the mix to the 2-track. That's 3 layers of compression. It really is all about just dialing it in for the sound that you want. Yeah, like Mika's saying, pre-compression was great when you were working on a relatively limited dynamic range, like on tape. Now we're in 32-bit and 64-bit in those worlds, so we kind of have limitless. There's Kyle with the $2 super chat. Thank you very much. Keep on keeping on. I'm trying. I'm just talking to you guys this evening, which is fun. I want to get into this. I want to show you some stuff, but you guys are going crazy. Don't stop. I'm just saying. Maybe tell people I will do something funny or special if they hit the like button. What am I, a monkey for your amusement? I'm not here for cheap parlor tricks, Music to Motion. But go ahead and hit that like button. Uh-oh. 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 All right. As much as I really, like, I am so lost in all of your stuff, I think, because we've been literally talking for 25 minutes, and don't get me wrong, I am all about this. This is fine for me. Lollipop's here. Hey, Lollipop. Let's get into things. Morton, I have a Roland TD11, but hate the hi-hat. Get bad feel from it, and the pedal don't sound often. Is this a typical problem? Are you recording the sounds from your Roland kit, or are you using your Roland kit to trigger like drum VSTs? Because what you could do, Morton, is if you're recording both, is turn off the local sounds for your hi-hat from the kit, and you'll just record basically your shells and your cymbals, but turn the MIDI on, and you can record all of your MIDI as well, and you can replace stuff. It's one way to do it. Is it the way? No, but it's certainly one way. We all take shots at the Midnight Bar every time Tim Talks Audio is mentioned. Yes! That's how you know you make it. I've made it, people. Still need more and that'll boost the algorithm. All right. So Morton says, trigger MIDI, addictive drums. And you're not liking the hi-hat sound. So, I mean, you have to remember that MIDI drums are really for the shells. Cymbals are much better now. They used to be real crap, but they're much better now. Things like hi-hat, it really is going to come down to the articulation of the hi-hat. As an idea, though, if you're triggering MIDI, what you could do is also invest in an actual pair of hi-hats for your studio, and you just need one microphone and a set of hi-hats, and you can record live hats on MIDI drums. I know a bunch of people who record real cymbals with MIDI drums. That's another thing you could do. Bunch of suggestions, Morton. Raul just wanted to say hello. Hello, Raul. You're not late. You got here right on time because you're here. That's all that matters. Make sure to watch the full video later. Demo time? Yes. Let's get into it because we haven't. Like I said earlier, this is a heavy track. It's not for the faint of heart. This is a track that Brian is probably going to appreciate. I believe, if I remember correctly, this is one that I got from the Cambridge site. So we're just going to kind of mess around with this. And what are we going to do for our example? Well, we have options. So what I did is I fader balanced this, and that's really all I did. And then I did a little bus processing. So I have the Slate mix bus for an SSL. Like I said, I was watching the Tom Lord Algae, and I was like, oh, let's go with SSL sounds. So I had the SSL, the Brit 4K-E, and then I had this followed up by the Brainworks Townhouse bus compressor, is based on the SSL bus compressor. So it's really driving home that SSL. And then, of course, I went with the SSL 4000E channel from Plugin Alliance. And I did this across all of my channels, and I randomized them all too with these controls here. I did not change the size of my mouse for you guys. I apologize. I'm going to do it very quickly. I always forget to do this stuff. I did a lot of prep work, but I totally forgot to do that stuff. And my keyboard shortcuts are on for you guys as well. See? There they are. They're down here. No. You. Okay. Automation off. Cool. Keyboard shortcuts. Big mouse. Everybody's happy. Let's get into it. You're hear how crazy this song is. And I think we're going to mess with the vocals. So I'm going to come right here. And honestly, these ones are not that great, so I'm just going to take them out. And I'm going to dial in my speakers while you guys listen to this. Essentially, it's fader balance. There's SSLs on all the channels, but they're not doing anything right now.
But
Like I told you, not for the faint of heart. So yeah, we're going to be working on our lead vocal. So let me locate to it. And I went with the SSL channel for a couple different reasons. And I have EQ going on this one. This is the only one I have EQ going on. But you guys heard, I mean, I'll bypass this one. And you can hear. Very dynamic performance. Song title. This one is Rebuild the Evil, Burial of Silence. Brian, you're going to want to have fun with this one. This one's pretty cool. Very dynamic performance. I mean, if we're just literally looking at it, look how dynamic this lead vocal is. There's loud spikes, there's quiet bits. This was not processed on the way in. You can tell just by looking at it. What did the vocal say? The vocal said, pay attention. It doesn't matter what he said. But this is what he said. Come on, man. You didn't understand that? Guys, get a look at music emotion over here. Not understanding black loosely. Doesn't it tear up the vocal cords? No, because there are ways to train your voice to do stuff like this. Let's move on to over here a little. Over here a little. Forget my father. This is a period. My shadow was a loss. I also have a little bit of reverb going on because listening to just this kind of vocal is real gross sounding. I mean, if I took the reverb off, you guys would really hate it, but I'm not going to do that. Can I play it backwards just to check? Sure, let's reverse it real quick. Yeah. Chicago rules. All right, that's too funny. I should have just undone. Wait. Let me just undo 2 levels. Undo. Okay. Let's throw this thing back on. Fair amount of EQ. Now, okay. Rewinding. EQ before compression, EQ after compression. One of the main reasons that I chose the SSL strip is this button down here, pre-dynamics. That allows me to take the EQ section of this channel strip and position it either pre-dynamics, before EQ, or after EQ. I'm even going to bypass the dynamics right now, which is, oh my goodness, is both the gate and the compression. That's all of your dynamics, making things loud and quiet. Here's just the EQ. It is pre-dynamics, but the dynamics are bypassed. For the pieces of a broken soul, forget my father. This is a period. That's enough. Okay. Let's put it to a vote. What do you want to hear before? EQ before compression or EQ after compression first? Start throwing them in. I'm going to see if I can catch up with you guys real quick. And I appreciate, everybody had fun. We just reversed it and did that. Microphone used, no clue, bops. No clue. But sometimes when you're a mixer, you don't get that information. And it doesn't matter at that point anyway. It just you gotta make it sound good. Vocalization won't be adept. Screams out of context are my favorite. Yes, Brian. So Music in Motion was asking, like, if performing like this tears up your vocals. No, you can train yourself to do anything. How do you think marathon runners run marathons? They don't just get up one day and go, well, going for 26 miles, here we go. You train yourself. There are ways of doing it. I am not an expert in a way of training people to do this, but you can do it without damaging yourself. You can also do it by very much damaging yourself. The lead singer of the band Avenged Sevenfold really tore up his voice, and he had to go have surgery to repair it. And he still sings now, but he's been having a way more intensive training to perform screams. Now, he's not always like this. He sings too, but, you know, these heavy vocals, they do require training. We have a guy who does that on karaoke night and impeccably as well. Let's see, Blades. Well, honestly, with this kind of music, I'm really lost how I would be able to tell an SSL from a Neve or anything else. Even just compression and EQ are a little vague at best for me. Blades, there are things you can do. Here, let's do this real quick. Let's listen to the vocal, and I'll take the EQ in and out. For the pieces of a broken soul, forgive me, Father. Obviously, there's our volume boost, so it might be better to just bypass here. For the pieces of a broken soul, forgive me, Father. This is a period. My shadow was the last time you lose it. Oops. For the pieces of a broken soul, forgive me, Father. So it brings out a little bit more nose. It brings out a little bit more honk. I know I'm realizing now you guys didn't see me doing that, but I tried to just volume balance, so you didn't need to see it. What I'm doing is bringing it is presence that I'm bringing forward, even though for a lot of people this is completely unintelligible. You have no idea what he's singing. But he's not really singing and screaming it anyway. But what I need to do is find a spot for him to sit in the mix. So using EQ, I can bring some presence. I can bring a little nose. I can telephone him a little, give a little power, because when he gets to those really deep things, that's not how you do it. But when he gets to those really deep notes, give it a little bit more power. When I was looking at the frequency readout of just these vocals, it's very thin, so I needed to add some body back in. Okay, let's catch up with everyone. I'm sorry, this is fine. That's fine, Bob. Yeah, Tim Talks Audio. Alka-Seltzer. No, Seltzer. Okay, so everybody's going on about with the vocal. I understand. I told you this one's gonna be crazy. Okay, so then let's do this. We have our EQ. So right now it is set to pre-dynamics. Let's turn our dynamics back on. And then I'm probably doing a fair amount of compression using this compressor. Whatever. Like it matters, or you guys can understand them anyway. Let's just go. For the pieces of a broken soul, forgive me, Father. This is a period. My shadow was the last time you lose it. For the pieces of a broken soul, forgive me, Father. This is a period. My shadow was the last time you lose it. For the pieces of a broken soul, forgive me, Father. This is a period. My shadow was the last time you lose it. For the pieces of a broken soul, forgive me, Father. This is a period. All right, you don't have to go through it again. What did you think? What did you hear when the EQ was before the compression? What did you hear when the EQ was after the compression? Was one louder? Was one quieter? Was one more consistent? Was one less consistent? What were some of those things? These are the things you should be asking yourself when you're doing this, and very quickly and easily using one button to put it before or after. Is it me, or is pre-dynamic pushing brighter in the high mids? For the
the pieces of a broken soul. Forgive me, Father, this is a period. My education was a loss, you losing.
That was a quick A-B. What do you think? Need some more air on EQ and EQ late around 2K. That's an option. I went with, what do we go with? I went with 2K. Bop, I already have 9 dB added of 2K. You want more? Sure, let's do more. Boom, 15. That's for Bop. I have a nice wide Q.
For the pieces of a broken soul. Forgive me, Father, this is a period. My education was a loss, you losing.
So, intelligible. Lollipop says that it is now intelligible. So Lollipop which was more intelligible, even though it's just ramblings of this guy screaming his brains out. Was it more intelligible when it was pre-dynamic, when the EQ was pre-dynamics, or when the EQ was post-dynamics, when your EQ was before or after your compression? Smart to EQ first and listen in car. It could be. It absolutely could be. Better. Bops, that's for you. Pre-dynamics is almost always a tad brighter, at least on my mixer. So pre-dynamics, it could be a bit brighter, but essentially what you're doing is what we were talking about before, is I've taken my EQ and my 15 dB boost at 2K for bops, and I'm shoving 15 dB of 2K into the compressor. So the compressor is like, whoa, what are you doing? Let's turn this down. So when I'm pushing into the compressor, my vocal is more consistent. The amount of compression I'm getting is more consistent because I'm feeding so much signal in. I'm feeding signals that I know I want to hear, and I'm doing so much that it is causing my compression to react more. You probably saw that on the LEDs here. I am getting more compression, but what I'm also getting is more consistency. So where my vocal is sitting is exactly where it's going to stay. Best to ask someone else that question. You got a Lollipop. Let's see. Jeff's out of here. Good night, Jeff. Jeff's got to teach tomorrow. Valid reason to go. So these are the kinds of things that you can listen to and listen for. And we don't even have to use the inline compressor on this channel strip. We can follow this up with, again, I've been watching the thing. That's not stereo. I was watching Tom Lord Algae, who I really like. Maybe even just a touch more than his brother. But I'm going to use this plugin, because whatever. I don't like them more. I shouldn't say that. They're both fantastic engineers. Just, like, brilliant dudes. So now, EQ into compression. I'm going to put it down here so everybody can see it. EQ into compression. I didn't dial this in other than the attack and release. And these are pretty much go-to settings for me. I might speed up the attack just a hair. It's already ludicrously fast anyway.
For the pieces of a broken soul, forgive me, Father, this is a period. My education was a loss, you losing.
I'd say we were pretty consistent with the amount of gain reduction we were getting. But the vocal, if I take the compressor out, honestly, I'm just going to take everything out. Listen to how dynamic these vocals are. You don't have to listen to what he's saying. I'm going to say this 100 times tonight. You're not listening to what he's saying, but listen to how loud he is versus how quiet he is.
For the pieces of a broken soul, forgive me, Father, this is a period. My education was a loss, you losing. For the pieces of a broken soul. Forgive my father. This is a period. My little shadow is a lost
He is pinned to essentially one volume, and he's right where I need. So now I can do some volume automation and make him breathe with the music in a way that the performance maybe didn't have, or in different spots. Having heard it again, it was difficult for me to tell. I don't know. I don't think that my ear is set into the sample enough before the A/B switches because I am not yet conditioned to this genre. Again, maybe this wasn't the best genre to pick, but at the same time, it was. This is a really good example because of how dynamic these vocals are. It is screaming, but he's like kind of held back on some because maybe he was tired, or he's going a little bit harder because this is the chorus. So it's very dynamic. Let's change the order with these two things, and I'll put the compressor before the EQ. So all I did is I did it here. So now it's going compression into EQ. And clearly it's just like blowing it out. I'm just going to turn it down.
For the pieces of a broken soul, forgive my father. This is a period. My little shadow is a lost For the pieces of a broken soul, forgive my father. This is a period. My little shadow is a lost For the pieces of a broken soul, forgive my father. This is a period. My little shadow is a lost
Again, we're changing how these two units, a compressor and an EQ, are interacting with one another. Oh, no, sir. I have no problem with this genre. It's a new challenge, and challenges are sexy as the leg lampshade in a Christmas Story. Hey. That was a major award. And it was Italian. Did I play with this band? No, this is not my band. When I was in bands, we were just like hard rock. I would do some screams. Nothing like this, though. Change the order. So let's come back and talk to you guys. What are you thinking? Have we done... I mean, we haven't done everything. Maybe we should do... Should we go over to bass? Or maybe drums? What do you think? Because we can do this anywhere. We can do this wherever we want. Whatever you want to do. Maybe drums. Because then we can really show how like boosting your EQ into your compression adds a ton of smack. So what I'm going to do real quick is I do have all of these snares, but I'm just going to put them into their own bus, which is then going to go to my drum bus, which is exactly what I want. Snare. That didn't do anything that I needed it to. Okay, all right. Okay. That's fine. I don't want to change the name of you anyway. I just don't want to. What on earth have I done? Doesn't matter. Okay. Let's go with snares. So here's a good example as well of EQ before or after dynamics in this instance. Is we have all of that bleed. So where do we want our EQ? Do we want to add a ton of top end of our snare before our gate? Okay, so we dialed in something very fast. You can also just kind of roll off some low end. Now let's dial in our gate in this instance. Much harder to hear for the gate. So let's just go to town with our compression. You can't fix those drums, bops, ye of little faith. Ye of little faith. We're just on our snare drum right now, man. Ugh, bops. Come on, man. You had to go and say it. You had to go and say it. Now we're dialing in some drums, just for bops. You know why? Because he had to go and say something. He had to ruin it for the whole class. Now homework for everyone. Okay, so remember what Sekra was saying before, where when the EQ was before the compressor, he heard more like high mid emphasis. Kick drum, right here, with all of the drums going on, and we're going in and out with our kick drum. Come on, man. That's why you need to keep your mouth shut. Yeah, you do. I'm kidding, Pops. Kidding. On hardware SSL, Neve, and API EQs, engineers weren't too cautious with being subtle with settings, and neither am I, Mika. As you do, the harmonic saturation is increased. Yes, and so like, look, I'm at like 60 hertz or something. +9, +10, maybe +11 on our low end. Honestly, I could probably go more. It's much more smacky. And yes, I am saying smacky. Are you going to join the Midnight Bar? I don't know, because you haven't put a link in the description. What was I saying? The kick drum is much more smacky with the EQ before the compressor, and we're doing 2-to-1 ratio on our kick drum right now. We're just doing 2-to-1, and when we're pre-compressor, we're getting somewhere around 10 dB of gain reduction on our kick drum. If we're post EQ, you do get a lot more low end. And you don't get as much snap and much attack from this. So I could follow it up and say like, oh, well, I do need some more attack. So let's just kind of add some presence. Very different on how the compressor is reacting and how it's altering the sounds. With this presence boost, it is much closer through before or after compression for our EQ. But we heard it before without this in. Let's just put it back. I mean, it was much more snappy, but we didn't have as much low end, because our low end is what's really driving the compressor to react. We're shoving a ton of low end into the compressor. So all of that low end, all of that energy is making the compressor hit really hard. If we're post dynamics, so what we could do is put our EQ, scoop out some of that boxy, even more, some of the gross boxy sounds from our kick drum. Now we don't have any of that low end body that we all want. But let's imagine that we actually worked in a studio that had one of these, because why not? You follow your SSL up with an Eve, because why not? And let's get some juicy 1073 low end. And we're going to go with 35 hertz. You can feel and hear all of the thump of the low end of there, the clicky attack that this kind of song and style like asks for. The only thing that we don't have on here is a little bus compression, and I'm going to show you guys what I like. Like I said, it's the API 2500. I like it in dual mono. Where'd my mouse go? There it comes. There he is, dancing around. So yeah, and very similar kind of gluey settings, slow attack, fast release. Porter one's gonna be fine. Let's dial it in. There we go. This is starting to get to, oh, look at that, a clip. This is starting to get really close to like what I would do for a song like this for the drums. Let's catch up with you guys. Let's see. Smash that like. That's one of the things I see from Secret. Let's see, Mika. Yes, exactly. Like Mika said, that compressors react to the energy being fed within. Because we had so much low end boost on the SSL into the SSL compressor, it was reacting a lot to all of that boost. But when we switched to post with our EQ, we had this nice round kick drum. It had lots of low end body, lots of thump, but it wasn't really doing as much on our compressor. Things to listen and watch for. Let's see. Catching up with everybody. This kit won't allow the opportunity to do what you want. Bob. Bob, you're doing that thing again. Let's remember. Secretary, what are you on about? I'm just reading your message. I'm like, what? I appreciate it. Like, I got you, man. Boop, 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 boop. Hang on, what did I was somewhere and I lost it. But the concept of compressor in this tutorial is a nice discussion. Thank you, Pops. I so want a Neve thing on the way in. Don't we all? Don't we all? Everybody just save up. Everybody buy each other. Don't buy it for you. Buy it for your friend. Everybody gets a 1073. Okay? Don't buy for yourself. You buy for someone else, and they'll buy for you. Draw names out of a hat, but we all get the same gift. Oh, Brian, that's all right, man. Go deal with the kids. They're far more important than me. Hope it wasn't nightmares for when Dad was playing. It could have been. It's very frequently that my daughter gets out of ballet class and she goes,
Let's go, Daddy.
Okay, maybe I should change what we listen to in the car on the way to the ballet. Secret, I'm noticing that the kick is very consistent, perhaps default. I don't know if this is possible, but is there a way to do that sidechain thingy to randomize compression? Yeah, but I don't know if I would want to do that. Personally, I don't know if I would want to do that. I would want my instruments where I want them so that I can do some simple automation to have them have that life and that breath and move around. So you almost choke it so you can say like, no, you go here where I tell you to go. Not always. Not always. You don't always have to compress. You do not have to compress. Brian Wallace's son goes hard. Catching up. 1073 Secret Santa. Come on, who wouldn't want to be part of a 1073 Secret Santa? What does my daughter say getting out of ballet class? It doesn't matter what she says. It's just sometimes she comes over and goes,
Daddy, let's go.
There's other kids around. Your teacher is right there. They're going to think I'm a terrible influence. Let's go listen to devil music in the car. Morton, listening from Norway. Welcome from Norway. Welcome to listen to my new jam on my YouTube. Hi-hat is not perfect, but I can pretend it is. Exactly. Everything doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to work within the mix that you're working on. I'm pretty good at that screaming thing. Yeah. Oh, man. So we've been messing around with a bunch of different things. And, I was showing Bops that, of course, we can get good drum sounds out of these drums. Bop. Ballet, spinning head, split pea soup, the whole 9 yards. Come on. So I think what else we could do... Why are you... Is my eye lock acting up? Is something acting up? I think something's being weird. Does anybody have any questions? I think we're kind of at the ends that... Is there a right? Is there a wrong? I'm going to go back to this one. Is there a right? Is there a wrong? No. What you're doing is either pushing or taking away frequencies that are going into your compressor. You're going to put someone's eye out, kid. Jeez. You'll shoot your eye out. Linda, please. If there's any questions, by all means, throw them in the chat. I'll do my best to answer them. We had such a discussion earlier. But what's better? There is no answer to what's better. It's what's going to get you that sound. Do you need to clean up your stuff before your compression and then maybe sweeten after with some more? EQ? Do you want to emphasize stuff into your compressor? And so you just want to boost stuff in and get some extra saturation, because you can do that as well, especially with these digital emulations. You can push into them. Like, let's go back to our vocal. I'm not going to play it. Well, I'm going to play it real quick. But if I open up the 1176 and show the input, when it's post EQ, let's solo it out. Look at how hard it's getting put in. We're pinning it, but we're getting extra saturation. You didn't see that because I did that. So here it is. We are pinning this 1176, but we're also using the sound of the 1176 to saturate that vocal. Yes, he's screaming, but saturation on a screaming vocal can add extra harmonics. And if we even want to add more, we can. Let's go with the Kush stuff and the A. We can add some more transformer harmonics. Now he's really crunchy, but that could be really good for this style thing. Or whatever you're working on. Maybe you want to crunch up a guitar a little. You can EQ it, you can compress it a bit, and then you can saturate it some. Now, the snare is obviously way too loud right now, but that's because of bop. -4 is probably going to be good. That's what's causing our clipping. Whatever. Yeah, close enough. Music emotion, I think you're still around. Noise is good, but speakers need to rest. Yes, yes, Brian. Great demo. Hard material to show much precision. Maybe next time with more subtle material or legible vocals. Mika, you got it. We'll do something like this, and the song next time will be something where you can actually understand what the person is saying. Generally speaking, though, for the stuff I work on, it's kind of heavy stuff. So this is what we had for our example today. Thank you for playing with the mix. You're very welcome, Bob. Let's see. And mind you, not much else has been worked on. Like, I've done... Everything has the SSL on it, just to get, like, the sound of the SSL, but nothing's doing anything. Like our guitars... Just a tiny amount of SSL saturation because we're going through the plugins. But nothing was going on there. And the only other thing I had going on was the bass on its own. Sounded like this. Not bad. But what I did is I used the Joey Sturgis Joel Wanasek bus glue. The bass... And I didn't do any like leveling or limiting or anything here. All I did was he's got this distortion unit down here. He calls it grit. And I just picked one to get more of like a nasty, gnarly bass sound. It does add volume because it's just distorting it. And then this went into the SSL. But again, it's not doing anything. So... that was what was going on with this mix. But it's just faders and pans. So, you're down with this sickness. Sometimes you gotta leave stuff alone. Yeah, absolutely you do. Let's talk with you guys for a little bit, because I think we're pretty much wrapping up. What's best? EQ before compression, EQ after compression? Yes, is the answer. You do what you need to. Maybe you need to push a little bit harder into your compressor, so you throw your EQ before. Maybe you need to clean up your signal before you level it out, and you don't want these really nasty sounds going into your compressor, because then you're just keeping all of those in and getting it closer to the stuff that you really want to hear, and it's nasty, so get rid of it anyway. Or you can compress because it's really not that bad on its own. So you just want to level it out. And then you're like, you know what? In the mix, this really needs to be a little bit brighter. It needs to be a little bit more presence. I need to have some more thump because that kick drum just didn't have enough like low end to it to really like punch me in the gut. So I'm going to throw an EQ after my compression. There is no right answer. The right answer is what sound are you going for and how can you get there? I am knocking this thing around today. Music to Motion said it right there in the chat. In the end, what sounds best? He said whatever, so I changed it a little. I'm going to wrap it up with, again, one of my favorite sayings from Andrew Sheps. The only thing that matters is what comes out of the speakers. Nothing else matters but what comes out of the speakers. Our jobs as mixers and engineers is to make sure that what comes out of the speakers blows people away. That's your job. They don't care how you did it. Don't lead them off with, oh, well, you know, hey, man, that mix is done. It's in the Dropbox for you. It's in the Google Drive. Take a listen. Let me know what you think. That's all you got to say. They hit play, and then you just wait for the comments to come in going, wow. Wow. Nothing else matters. Secret. Nothing else matters. Whatever. I think that's it for this evening. Thank you all so much for hanging out this Friday night. We're skipping next week. I should have said this earlier. We're skipping next week. Unfortunately, I just have a ton of stuff going on next week. And by the time I got home on Friday, I wouldn't really have time to kind of do this show. So we're going to skip next week, and I'll let everybody know when the next live show is going to be. I appreciate you hanging out with me tonight, possibly learning some stuff like Music to Motion did. All the super chats, thank you so much. All the likes, the subscribes, everything you guys do really helps and supports. If you haven't already, go ahead and join the Discord. Here's the little thinger that's doing its little job. Link in the description if you want to join the Discord and learn some more stuff outside of these shows, outside of these videos. We all have a nice community growing where we can talk shop with one another at whatever time we want. Who's taking over next week? Nobody. Everybody study next week. Go mess around for 2 weeks. EQ before or after compression. That's what you got to do, and then report back. There will be a test. There's going to be a test. All right, everybody. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. I will see you soon. Not next week, but I will see you soon. And thanks for hanging out. Have a good one.